Buenos días. ¿Cuántos de...
Good morning. How many of you do speak Spanish? And how many English? Okay. It's pretty much even. I'm going to do it in Spanish because it's the language I've prepared it in. Right, so I'm going to talk about ayahuasca in post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm going to tell something about post-traumatic stress disorder. That has nothing to do with me. So it's a syndrome. The main symptom is intense anxiety, irrational anxiety after suffering trauma. The war veterans have a roughly 20% prevalence. To understand post-traumatic stress, we have to understand how the memory is created in our brain. We first process it through the limbic system, which is the deeper part, the one under the brain cortex of our emotional brain, in the mammal brain. We have first experience, and experience may remain as a conscious level, or it may become get the conscience to the prefrontal cortex, which is where our cognitive abilities are, where we can give a sense to what we've experienced. What occurs with post-traumatic stress? When we have a trauma, a certain stress situation, a very high stress situation, is created in the brain, and this prevents the memory from being elaborated by the prefrontal cortex. That is, the experience is blocked in the limbic system, in the emotional brain. As a consequence, it is not possible to think over this memory, and the body feels reactions of irrational pain, even though if there is no external reason to produce this fear. For instance, if somebody has suffered trauma for being shot, if they hear a door slamming or a strong noise, the body reacts as if they were shooting at them again. The rational mind feels it's a door slamming, but it's like the deeper brain kidnapping the whole reaction of the organism and gives prevalence to the response, attack or running away. It's as if the organism gets very scared of being in a situation of life or death, and it makes a sort of bypass around the conscious brain and reacts very quickly, but also with little reliability with the most cognitive brain. People suffering post-traumatic stress, apart from being possibly victims of panic attacks at any time, tend to isolate themselves socially. They don't feel comfortable with many people, or they tend towards depression, sleeplessness, nightmares. It's a very weakening condition. Unfortunately, it usually leads to self-medication, to addiction, and often to suicide. In the US, we know that there are many more deaths among the US veterans by suicide than by combat. That is, many more American soldiers die when they are back home, rather than on the theater of operations. That it's estimated that every day an average 22 veterans of the US Army commit suicide, which is it's a very big problem. Last Wednesday, a very good movie from Chateau was passed. The conventional treatment of psychotherapy is not very useful because often it remains at an intellectual level, and the person is unable to talk about something they have no conscious access to because this has got stuck at a deeper level. Pharmacological therapy can reduce symptoms, but unfortunately it has very deep side effects. So they have only big high dosages of antidepressants, and this has very negative consequences like emotional disorders, depression, tendency to turn to suicide. So this cannot be maintained over a long time. This is why ayahuasca is a good treatment, a good candidate to treat post-traumatic stress. It has the advantage of allowing working in depth. You can gain access to the deeper parts of the brain and emotions, and as a side effect, usually one becomes more loving, happier and healthier, so it's quite bearable as a side effect. This is one of the big advantages. I'm going to give you an example. This is a soldier from the Danish army who in 2010 was 6 months serving in Afghanistan. While being there in combat, he saw dying his best friend and his captain. Since then, he has had nightmares every night. He woke up sweating and panicking, and coming after his return to Denmark, he could not keep the job. He lost all his social relations. He got increasingly isolated. In 2013, post-traumatic stress and depression was diagnosed with him. He had psychotherapy with an army psychologist. He said he had helped him, but he didn't yet solve his problem. He got psychiatric treatment with the highest allowed doses of antidepressants, and he had to leave it due to side effects. He had suicide impulses, and he had to go to a psychiatric hospital. He decided to discontinue antidepressants. He quit them by and by. It was difficult because he had to go through it, but he undid the emotional blocking and he recovered part of happiness. He felt more alive, and especially suicide impulses was reduced. Between 2015 and 2017, he came to take ayahuasca, and he took part at 6 ceremonies. The decision was hard for him to take because he didn't feel attracted by this world. He did it forced because he didn't see any other way out. So every retirement is made of 2 consecutive nights of ayahuasca ceremony. His first night was very difficult. He is a very sensitive person. He had an overreaction. He suddenly so immersed into his views, he felt big panic and he got blocked. That is, he resisted the experience. He had a very hard time and he couldn't work on that. This is also why we worked 2 nights, because the next day when he explained what had occurred, he was given a pattern to handle better experience. The dosage was adjusted. He took a lighter dosage so he could be working, and the second night he was able to work. He entered into the visionary state, but the visions came one after the other, and he revived again the situation of trauma. He came back to Afghanistan at the moment of death of the captain and his friends. But the big difference is that he saw the whole scene, but not from his perspective. It was just some sort of depersonalization. He saw that from above and from many different perspectives of all those who were present. And at that time, he told us that he was feeling that he had to be reviving this scene from all the different viewpoints, and this allowed him elaborating and processing this memory, and he could do so because since it wasn't experiencing from his point of view a victim, the suffering was not unleashed, nor the panic, nor the blockade. So he could do it. It was very hard at that time. He had also an emotional catharsis, and at that time we went to help him, and by just being with him with physical contact and pacing the respiration and calming him down, he tells it helped him getting more in depth. Suddenly, he said that he developed an X-ray view in high definition, augmented vision, and he saw him like these Alex Gray pictures, and he saw that in his heart and his mind there were pieces of the shrapnel of, and he saw that this was a trauma. And what he did at that time was to communicate with a plant, and he asked for permission to take them out, and he felt the plant gave him permission to take it out, and he wanted to throw it away. And at that time the plant told him, no, you can't throw it away, but I'm going to place it in a place of your mind where can you live with it. And he felt at that time that he could not refuse or reject completely his memories, but he could live with them in a good possible way. There, all the memories of his life shared with his best friends came up, and he had a big catharsis, and after that he calmed down, the effect got down, and the session ended. The experience had a therapeutic effect, the nightmares disappeared, he couldn't believe this, he was very happy, insomnia as well. He could dream again with a traumatic episode, but he was not waking up in panic again. It was more bearable. He still had episodes of depression, but they were much shorter, and his family, his friends felt like he was recovering faster. What improved was his social life. He came back to work, and he was able again to get surrounded by people. Formerly he couldn't get out. When there was a crowd around him, he panicked a lot. That happens a lot with war veterans, because they could be in a situation like this one. They would be looking around at the hands of the people if they are armed or not. So there he managed to socialize again, to go to attend festivals, to go to the cinema, so his life quality improved a lot. He feels he can get cured, especially he didn't see himself as a victim anymore, as somebody who had something terrible with no capacity of handling this. So he took the responsibility over his curing process, and there he is. He is giving talks about the subject. He's helping other post-trauma victims. He's improved a lot. He still came. He went to 2 more retirements, 6 ceremonies in all. He had no more spectacular experiences of healing anymore. He experiences rather as calling back, recalling this state and reconnecting with his part of himself that can be cured. Then he didn't come back anymore. He is not very close to visionary states, but he considered the experience had been enough to help him start his healing process. Why does it work? Basically, because it allows going to work in not some scientific works to the heart of emotions, of the limbic system, and it allows good communication between the heart and the mind. Scientifically speaking, between the cerebral cortex and the limbic system. And this is allowed thanks to trust. What produces post-traumatic stress is fear. Fear has the memory blocked in depth. Ayahuasca helps seeing that in trust. This is what the plant gives. Trust to go and see and to become healed. And this is what allows working with this sort of problems. It's very important, preparation is very important. Before the people takes ayahuasca, we help them looking for breathing, to relax, to do mindfulness exercises, to help those people have experiences without reacting immediately, but only observing what's occurring. It trying not to reject that it's in their center. It also helps to be very aware of these people during the ceremony. They need to feel safe. So having somebody by their side, through physical contact or by pacing, breathing. Shaman techniques work very much. Blowing, perfume, achacapa, all this is very helpful. All that allows the person doing the journey. They come very scared to the ceremony because they have the panic of being re-traumatized, which may occur. Well, just one last sentence. It seems this treatment works, so let's see if we find ways of developing it and it reaches out to more people, because there are many people who need this medicine, this work. Thank you very much.